What is up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Lovely Loners. Today we're going to be taking a look at the WE Knives 601. This is on loan to us from my friend Fong. Go check him out on Instagram here. The 601 comes in this variation, which I don't have the letter for. I'll put that right here. But this variation is very similar to the 604 that I own. It is the blue with purple hardware variant. So I'm definitely a fan of that, to say the least, as the 604 really is my favorite knife. Now the 601 has a lot of characteristics that the 604 has that make it so great and make all the WE knives so great. And it also has some faults. So let's talk a little bit about that. Also, excuse my voice. I am getting over a cold, so bear with me on that. The first thing, or one of the first things that I noticed about this knife is actually the clip, which is very similar to the clip that we find on the Reich knives. I found that to be oddly suspicious. I do believe that some of the Reich models that use this kind of design, and this particular WE model, came out in similar time periods. I didn't actually go back and look it up, but both companies really hit the American market in 2014. So, and this is from the first lineup that we offered. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It's got the same exact pattern here on the end, the same kind of shape cut out. The only thing that's a little bit different is this particular one does have a slight arch to it. The action on this knife is absolutely fantastic. When I got the knife, so Fong actually purchased this secondhand on Reddit's Knife Swap and just mailed it through me. So I'm very appreciative of that, getting the opportunity to see the knife. When I got the knife, it had, the pivot was a little bit off center, and it was dropping shut, but I knew that there was more fluidity to be had. So I actually loosened up the pivot, excuse me, straightened out the logo on the face, the face of the knife here, and then I tightened it back up, but left a little bit of looseness in there, and now the knife absolutely glides shut. It's pretty amazing. It's actually even better than the action on my 604. This one might just be a little bit more broken in. It might be a little bit older than my 604, but I must say that the action falling close on this knife is absolutely insane. I do like deployment on it. It's very solid. The detent's pretty strong. It could be a little bit weaker, but if the strength is what gives it such an awesome action, then I'm totally comfortable with that. I will say I'm not a huge fan of the flipper tab. There's jimping on here, but it's pretty soft. And just the shape of the flipper tab in general, it's very arched. It's very easy to slip on, especially for somebody like me who has moist hands. It's very easy to slip. And I do find myself actually slipping pretty frequently just because of the strength of the detent. You know, if you just kind of go for it without thinking, you'll often find yourself just kind of going whoop, right off the back there. But when you do get it, or as long as you're kind of thinking about where you're placing your finger, putting that pressure, then you're going to get that deployment every single time. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, there is one issue that I have with this knife, which is I'm not sure if it's a result of the knife being secondhand, if it's from poor use or just lots of wear over time, or if the knife actually came from the factory like this. But there's actually a detent ramp on the blade tang. I don't know if I'll be able to get any of this on video, but there is a ramp. I don't know if you can kind of see how the detent ball, you're not seeing the full size of it until it's gotten completely up that ramp. So maybe you can just see from the lock bar moving. But there is a detent ramp, and at least on this particular one that I'm holding, that detent ramp is grindy. Grindy to the point where it's really... I'm really not a fan. It actually kind of ruins part of the knife for me. And you can push the lock bar so far that you don't actually feel it, and it gets up onto the tang without using the ramp at all. And in that case, you know, you would never know. And it feels great, and the thing glides closed just like that. But when you do feel that, when you just disengage the lock bar and you end up pushing the blade through that ramp, you feel that grinding, and you feel it all the way through the handle. You feel it through the whole knife, and it doesn't feel good. It feels dirty, and it feels grindy, and it's just no good. So again, that might have been a factory flaw on this particular knife. It might be something that was caused over time on this particular knife. It might be something that happens on all of the 601s. I couldn't tell you. But that is a really unfortunate piece for me, because I really like the knife otherwise, and that would be something that would make me not want to keep it. One thing that I did think was super cool about the design aesthetic of this knife, however, are these cutouts for the stop pin. Now, you can see there's this cutout here, and then if you push the knife in, you can kind of see that the same shape is cut out of the flipper tab for where it actually meets the stop pin on the other side. So the stop pin is always being surrounded by this kind of curved horn kind of shape, and I think it's really cool that if you hold the knife just like this, see if I can get the angle, it looks like two little kind of like devil horns. I just thought that was really interesting, and I really like that We Knives does the cutout for the stop pins. You can see it on my 604 as well, right there. I just think that's super cool. Let's see if I can show you how kind of it wraps around. I just really like that as a design aesthetic. I think it's really neat to design around the stop pin instead of just having a flat blade tang. So I really like that design language in this knife. I think it's pretty cool that it looks like little bull horns. Another thing that you'll notice kind of right away about this blade is that the cutting edge starts kind of normal, but then progresses to this very very wide grind, and this is all edge grind, and it is very sharp. I cut lots of paper with this. It's very sharp, and I just think that's super cool. This isn't the only knife that I've seen that on. I think I've seen it on some Striders, and I've seen this kind of grind before, but the fact that it comes on a production knife like this is super neat, and I just think it really gives it both a cool design aesthetic and something that makes it both a little bit unique in the knife world in general, and a little bit unique among some of the We knives themselves. So I definitely thought that was really cool. I almost would have appreciated like a satin finish on this swedge here, but that's just personal perspective. I think it could have brightened up the knife a little bit more, but that's just me. No big deal. So let's see. I think the back spacer here is really neat. I do like the design that they did. You do have space for a lanyard hole if you want it. Lanyard hole if you want it, but you need to disassemble the knife or have some really good feeding practices to get the paracord through there. But I think the backspacer design is pretty cool. It's really nice to have such a uniquely milled backspacer on a knife in this price bracket. It's not completely unheard of, obviously, but you can see even on some of the later knives like the 604D, they went for this kind of faux integral look with the two pieces of the handle just being joined by hardware and kind of having a line through the back. Now on the 604, it is covered up by the bevel, but they do have a lot of knives where it's not, and you just see the line down the spine, which I don't like so much. So it was really cool to see that when they actually went ahead and did the backspacer on this early production model for them, not early in terms of the company, but early in terms of their American presence. It's nice to see that they went with something really unique and milled out like that. I thought that was really cool. I will say that the knife doesn't hold super well. It's got kind of some weird ergos to it. It kind of forces your thumb to be here, which kind of chokes the rest of your hand down a little bit more than you'd want to be. If you're holding it just like this, it does feel good, but I feel like I'm a couple miles away from the blade, and I don't feel like I have a whole lot of control. I mean, I definitely do feel like I have control, but just maybe not with some of my other knives. I do like on like the 604 how I can be choked right up here to the flipper tab, and this, I really feel ownership of the blade here. You know, my hand's kind of around the blade, and that feels really good. It feels really confidence inspiring, whereas on this knife, the blade's kind of like off doing its own thing. I'm not really anywhere near the blade. I don't have a finger up on the blade or anything like that, so it just makes it kind of feel like a bigger knife maybe than it actually is, and it's not the super duper most comfortable thing ever. This area is very, very thin, which is common on knives, granted, but then it's met by this extra thick spot in the middle here, which is okay because that is kind of the length of your fingers, and so you do kind of get this flat line that you can draw with your fingers. Not so much here, but I don't know. It's just one of those things where I feel like the ergonomics could have been a little bit better. I feel like design aesthetics took precedent here. There is obviously no jimping in this area, but this little thing that turns into the horn or whatever, the hook for the stop pin, actually provides pretty decent grip. If you dig your thumb into that thing, it kind of acts like jimping. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's not the most amazing thing ever, but it does provide a little bit of purchase if you really had to kind of push this through something. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, guys, this one's got a really sick action on it. I absolutely love the way that it drops closed. It's so freaking smooth. It's just incredibly smooth. I'm very proud of WE for this one. I love all of their products. You will definitely see more of those on the channel. I really appreciate Fong sending this knife out so that I could check it out before he finally got his hands on it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. You can check me out on Instagram here. If you like this video, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.